Close to 1 million people have fled to Bangladesh to escape the genocide of Myanmar, the former Burma. A U.S. delegation of interfaith leaders visited the refugee camps and has brought back their stories. Welcome to A Spirited Debate. I'm Lauren Green. Witnesses say the Burmese government is systematically eradicating anyone not like them, and chief on the list is the Rohingya Muslims, but it includes Christians, Hindus, and many more. Nicolee Ambrose was a member of the interfaith team to visit the refugee camps and hear their stories of rape and murder and other atrocities. Nicolee joins me now from D.C. Welcome, Nicolee.
Thanks for having me.
You wrote a very harrowing account of what you saw, and it is now on FoxNews.com. What did you find in these refugee camps?
It was heartbreaking. There were about 8 camps holding about 700,000 to 1 million people. We had people who had suddenly had to escape overnight late last year. Basically, military surrounded their villages. It was this radical Buddhist military in Burma, now known as Myanmar, surrounded their villages, killed all the men, raped every woman they could find, and then killed babies in the most brutal way possible. And it's now termed by our State Department as ethnic cleansing, but really it's genocide. When you target people because they are a different religion, it's eradication of a people. The Myanmar government is now bragging that they have eradicated 90% of the Rohingya population. You have to realize these were farmers, woodcutters, fishermen, people who lived kind of very simple agrarian life. They just happened to be on this beautiful coastline called Rakhine State in Burma, Myanmar. And, you know, some say people want the petrol, people want the land, but there's just a lot of really religious and ethnic hatred that this Buddhist majority country is directing towards anyone who's not like them, whether they be Muslim, Christian, Hindu, another tribe. It's genocide. You
know, here in America, we think of Buddhists as very calm, very peaceful, meditating. But what is causing this eradication, this genocide, this ethnic cleansing in this country, this Buddhist country?
Great question. It goes back centuries. These Rohingya people say they have been there for about 2 millennia. Once again, it's a 90% Buddhist country. These are not normal Buddhists. They are obviously bastardizing their religion. We had Buddhist leaders from elsewhere in the world with us in these camps talking to these refugees to hear their testimony and bring these stories back to America. But, you know, obviously they are not practicing any form of any major world religion when they're enacting genocide on anyone who's not Buddhist.
You know, I know you had a lot of disturbing things that you saw there, but what was probably the most disturbing thing you heard going on?
I met with a lot of female victims of violence, and it was heartbreaking, obviously, to hear these stories, but it was particularly hard to imagine another human being could do the things they did to the women and their babies. The women were separated, and they were pulled out in groups of 5 to 6 at a time and raped for up to a day. And they were raped by soldiers, yes, but they were also brutalized with building materials and other horrible things. People had their body parts cut off and left to die, and then often the Burmese military would set whatever house it was on fire, and the women would be lucky to wake up before they were burned to death after being brutalized. And then the even worse stories were how they killed the babies, and that varied more. They were very systematic how they went after the women and the adult men, but in some villages they threw babies into a river. In other places, they literally cut them in pieces or threw them in fire pyres. I met one woman who would not let go of her 1-year-old baby, and they stabbed her in the head, then they tried to slit her throat, then they stabbed her in the chest before they grabbed her baby and smashed his head into the ground. So
this is, you know, Nicolee, what are the governments, the UN, the international community doing to help to help these people?
So the Bangladesh government has been these people's absolute savior. They let them flee across the border when they figured out genocide was occurring very quickly in late August of 2017. It's deeply disturbing because the U.S. had sanctions against Burma, and President Obama lifted them as one of his last acts in office, wanting to create a legacy of democracy there. And it's certain to say that the Burmese took this as a carte blanche to roll into these villages, and that these Rohingya and the Christians in the north and everyone else had no protections from these militant Buddhists. So now what we have is we have the House and the Senate, who have both, passed bills out of committee, but they need a full floor vote. And certainly you could look for executive orders from our current president to fix the mess and the lack of legacy from the last president.
Right. Well, the bottom line is that somebody has to know about it in order for people to be doing something about it. Thank you so much, Nicolee Ambrose. You are the spokesperson for the Interfaith Coalition to Stop the Genocide in Burma. Thank you so much for being on A Spirited Debate.
Thank you for covering this topic.
And if you want to find out more about the genocide in Myanmar, you can read Nicolee's article on foxnews.com. I'm Lauren Green. Thanks for watching A Spirited Debate.